All right, welcome back to JM Football. My name is Justin Pennick. Today we're doing a tier maker where we're ranking the best head coaching openings and job openings in the NFL. Now you're probably saying to yourself, Justin, this video is probably coming like a week or two late. Ben Johnson already took the Bears job and Mike Vrabel already took the Pats job. So what are you doing? Hey, guess what? Shit gets in the way. Life gets in the way. You even look at my right eye. I was like, I don't even know if I want to be behind camera. But you want to know what? I want to do it because I want to do different stuff, get outside my own comfort zone. You know what I'm saying? So like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you think. The tier maker that we're going to be doing, there's certain jobs that I wouldn't want to touch. There's certain jobs where they're intriguing, but your owner is nuts. And the third tier, I wonder what team this is going to be. You have my interest, but I have no clue what your plan is because you're the Saints and you're in cap hell. Wonder what team that's going to be. The next tier is definitely intrigued, but I have some questions first, and then there's a gotta have it tier. If you're a Cold Stone Creamery fan, then you know that the biggest size is gotta have it. There's like it, love it, gotta have it. Get it, got it, good. All right, let's start off with the Las Vegas Raiders. Raiders are an intriguing team, and that was a team where at first I wouldn't want to touch. When I first kind of wrote this kind of script out, I was like, I don't want to touch this because you got GM Tom Telesco in there. You have an owner that's a little impulsive, but now I'm actually moving the Raiders up to intriguing, but your owner's nuts. Now, here's why. Antonio Pierce was probably the sacrificial lamb for yet another impulse decision of owner Mark Davis when it comes to hiring and firing of a Raiders coach. Pierce is the fifth head coach Davis has fired since taking over the franchise in 2011. There's been a total of 8 different coaches, including interim coaches, during that span. Even though the players advocated for Pierce last year and the team finished off somewhat strong to end the year, hiring Pierce in the first place always seemed like an impulsive decision based on vibes and the energy that sometimes interim coaches bring. Now that a guy like Tom Brady is in the mix, and I feel like some fans are talking themselves into Tom Brady being part of this process as maybe a good thing, and maybe it is a good thing. Maybe Tom Brady is going to bring some sort of stability and patience to the Las Vegas Raiders instead of making impulse decisions. Now that you have the GM out of the mix and you have an opportunity to hire a GM and a head coach that's on the same cycle, that's something that is very enticing to me. But at the end of the day, you still have an owner in Mark Davis that has hired so many different coaches and has kind of made like these impulsive decisions based on, Antonio Pierce, I think, was based on vibes. And I think he felt bad about the previous special teams coach that was an interim coach there that kind of got him to the playoffs and they didn't bring him in. So I think Mark Davis had that on his mind. So really what I think the Raiders need is just a couple years of stability and hire people and let them work something out. So originally I did have the Raiders as, I don't want to touch that job, especially when the head coach and the GM were off cycle. But now I do put him in the intriguing, but your owner is nuts. So we have to see what Mark Davis, like he's the wild card here of, if you don't have success-ish within the first 2 years, what does that mean for your future? Because here's the issue. The Raiders have the number 6 pick in the draft in a year where they desperately need a quarterback. And until I see that Mark Davis is willing to remain patient with the head coach, I would be hesitant to work there. The Raiders roster also needs a ton of work. Now, they had a good draft last year under Tom Telesco where I think you got 2 offensive linemen, one of them being Jackson Parrish-Johnson. You get Brock Bowers. You get a couple guys in there that can kind of play for you and, even had an impact year 1. But new GM now, what's that vision going to look like? Head coach, GM, I like that they're going to be in sync and they're going to be in line with each other. That's good organizational process. So the Raiders did go from the standpoint of, I wouldn't want to touch it, to now intriguing, but your owner's nuts. That roster still needs a lot of work, though. You have the number 6 pick in the draft where you need a quarterback, desperately need a quarterback. So there's no clear vision of what the quarterback position is in sight. And odds are, if you can't get that fixed, your team's not going to be very good. How patient is Mark Davis going to want to be? We shall see. All right, now let's go on to the New York Jets, where I have the Jets as the same tier as intriguing, but your owner is nuts. I have the same tier as the Las Vegas Raiders. Now, Woody Johnson, I think he's the worst owner in sports. I mean, maybe there's an owner in another sport that's even worse than Woody Johnson. I think Woody Johnson's even worse than Dave Tepper. At least, the Panthers look like they're going in some sort of right direction. But if I'm a coach, I'm still like, really intrigued by this job. Like for the Jets, I was enticed to put them in the definitely intrigued, but I have some questions first, or even a gotta have it, but it's the presence of Woody Johnson that keeps them down there. But why am I so enticed to put them up? It's because of that roster, man. The Jets improved their offensive line that just drafted a promising future left tackle in Olu Fashanu. They have an elite running back, 2 elite wide receivers, depending on what the Jets want to do about the future of Devontae Adams, a young pass rusher in Will McDonald who is ascending, an elite interior defensive lineman in Quinton Williams, the best trio of interior linebackers in the NFL in Quincy Williams, Jamian Sherwood, and C.J. Mosley. Now, the Jets are going to have to make a decision on all 3 of those players as Mosley is coming off of injuries, while the other 2 ascending players in Sherwood and Quincy Williams, they're going to be looking for contract extensions. And, of course, you have one of the best 1-2 punches at cornerback in the NFL with Sauce Gardner and DJ Reed. DJ Reed will also be in need of a contract extension. Like, if I'm a defensive coach, I am salivating over what I can do with this defense. And it's reported as of Tuesday, January 21st, it's reported that Aaron Glenn is in that building today. He's in Florham Park, New Jersey today, and the Jets don't want to let him leave until he accepts the Jets head coaching job. So, I mean, I'm salivating over what I could do with that defense. It's not as good as what it was maybe 2 years ago, where it was, absolutely elite talent-wise, but bring back the right pieces, and I think more importantly, with the right leaders. This Jets team could be the fun team we thought that they would be for the last 2 years. Now, here's the thing, the Woody Johnson problem. He is a problem. The Diana Rossini and Zach Rosenblatt article detailing his influence and decision-making being destructive to the team should make any fan worrisome. Having a passive-aggressive owner who flies by the seat of his pants doesn't sound like something that's desirable, and according to the Athletic article, Woody has made decisions a coach would typically make, like lineup decisions or when the team practices, and of course we know his input in the front office as well. Part of the job of the GM or even the coach being to manage Woody Johnson. It's been a major source of dysfunction for the Jets. However, if the Jets can pair a GM and a head coach together on the same cycle with a shared vision, I would kind of be excited to tackle this job, even with the presence of Woody Johnson. And I understand it sucks that as a coach or a GM, you have to kind of micromanage even Woody Johnson along with all the other responsibilities that you have. But part of the excitement is not only with the roster, but what even are the expectations for the New York Jets? The Jets are in such a unique spot where they kind of have to start over, but I think the roster is good enough to maybe accelerate a rebuild without having to be too aggressive. I think, and the key word is think, patience is probably going to be granted to the next regime for the Jets, I think. I think a lot of coaches can and will look past ownership issues. They will see the talent on the roster and say, I can tackle that. And that's why I view the Jets job as a somewhat attractive landing spot, despite the cursed history of the franchise. And at the end of the day, the Jets are probably going to be a cursed team. The franchise does seem cursed, even if somebody who's very qualified comes in. And again, head coach, GM, same cycle. Aaron Glenn comes in, and which it's kind of strange. They don't have a GM yet, but they're about to hire a head coach. That's not something that I love. But even if you get guys on the same cycle and they're on the same page with each other, they're the New York Jets. They always seem to way to F it. There's always a way that they're going to F it up. But on paper, with the roster that they have and even the expectations of, well, the last 2 years we expected to win a Super Bowl, we are further away from that than we ever thought. But there's still a good core there where maybe the Jets can turn this around quicker than some people think. You got to get a quarterback, though, right? Like with a lot of teams. All right, we're moving on to the Jacksonville Jaguars, and this one is simple for me. And I think the rest of the NFL world agrees with this. If the Jaguars fire Trent Baalke, this would be a gotta-have-it job for me. Instead, it's a job I wouldn't want to touch. Trevor Lawrence has his flaws and questions, but he has manageable cap hits for the next 3 years and has proven his abilities as a solid NFL quarterback. Brian Thomas Jr. is a stud, and there are other solid pieces on this team, especially on the defensive side of the ball. But just when you thought the Jaguars were going to do the sound and logical thing and clean house, like it's the last week of the season, and everybody's like, all right, well, they're going to get rid of Doug Peterson, they're going to get rid of Trent Baalke, and they're going to start from fresh, and that's going to be a job and a spot that anybody's going to want to go to. Instead, they're going to let Trent Baalke hire his third head coach with the team, and that's bad. That's just not very good process. The drafts have not been impressive under Baalke, and he's missed on some key free agents as well. It feels like the Jaguars went 9-8 2 years in a row and kind of just banked on what was a really good defense in 2023 and just hoped Trevor Lawrence would stay healthy this year. They lost some key pieces on the defensive side of the ball, especially in the secondary, and then consequently, it turned into the worst pass defense in the NFL this past season. Forget about Baalke as a talent evaluator and a drafter for now. Let's just look at the situation a head coach is going to be in once he's hired. There's inevitably going to be a power struggle. Shad Khan recently said that he would consider front office changes if a new head coach comes in here and suggests something quote-unquote credible. And he said this while Baalke was sitting in the same Zoom call. So what is Trent Baalke going to do? Let a coach run him out of town? No way. And the second something goes wrong in Jacksonville, the GM, who already has the owner's ear, is going to throw the coach under the bus. As a coach, I feel like you would constantly be looking over your shoulder. It would be a power struggle. It's not a good working situation, and it just feels like the Jaguars are going to have to fully reset in a year or two. A coaching situation that should be attractive, but the presence of Trent Baalke makes it a dangerous job to take. And it's as simple as that for me. It's a job that I wouldn't want to touch. All right, how about the New Orleans Saints, man? And spoiler alert, I think you already know where the New Orleans Saints are going to be. I feel like the Saints have been the winners of the, well, what actually is your plan award for like the last couple of years now. They have the worst cap situation in the NFL by $20 million to the Browns, by the way, who are paying Deshaun Watson. They've tried to be like what I call half pregnant as a team that backloads contracts, has the most money invested in their running back room out of the entire NFL, no clear plan at quarterback, and a lack of direction. But they still try and be this team that competes and goes for it. I mean, that's what backloading all these contracts says to me. They went out and they paid Derek Carr. So that's what I like to call half pregnant. Like, I don't think the Saints fully know what they want to be or what they're trying to do. As a coach, I would need to know what's the plan here from a front office perspective. Are we going to continue to dig ourselves in a hole by backloading more deals and living kind of like in the short term? Or are we going to try and tear this thing down, get in a healthier cap situation, and continue to build through the draft? As a coach, if I'm kind of granted patience, I may feel better about joining a roster that is probably going to get much younger as some of the veterans clear out, and that I can craft my own vision. However, if Mickey Loomis is going to keep business as usual in terms of his roster construction, then the ceiling for this team I inevitably feel is limited in the 6 to 8 win territory. The ironic thing about Loomis is he's had some nice draft selections despite not having a ton of picks. Brian Bruzzi looks like a win. Chris Olave, talented, injured. Fuaga and Kool-Aid McKinstry from this year seem to be a good combo. Alante Taylor is a playmaker at DB despite him allowing a lot of yards. I'm hoping that they maybe tear it down, build it up right, get in a better cap situation, and the Saints could once again be a dangerous team in an NFC South that doesn't necessarily have like this top dog. But I need communication from ownership and then especially GM. You know, Mickey Loomis has been there for a very long time. Kind of seems like it's his show. What is Mickey Loomis's plan? Are we going to continue to backload contracts and operate the same way that the Saints have been operating cap space-wise over the last couple of years? Or is the next 2 years maybe going to be a little bit rough? Maybe going to be rough. We have to eat these contracts. We have to let these guys have certain high cap hits and continue to build through the draft. My thing is you always got to build through the draft. That's typically how you win and lose in the NFL. The NFL is a simple game. Do you draft good players or do you draft bad players? The teams that draft bad players are typically not good. The teams that draft good players, they're typically good. The Saints can draft good players, but I still feel like they need to fix that cap situation to really get themselves in a good spot. So as a coach, I'm going to need that communicated to me. The Saints get their own tier. All right, now let's move on to the New England Patriots. Yes, the New England Patriots hired Mike Vrabel. They did it a while ago. I still want to talk about it. I'm going to be quick on this, especially since the job is officially taken. Drake May, the 4th overall pick, and the money that the Pats have to spend makes this job worth it. But outside of that, what really makes this job attractive? Now that the Pats are like in the post-Belichick and Brady era, I think the Crafts need to realize that it wasn't their decision-making that led to those 6 Super Bowls. I still think they're in this mindset that their shit don't stink. And they, as an organization, I think they need a complete teardown. They don't have a GM. They've had horrible drafts. And for the last 2 seasons, this is what I mainly want to talk about. and for the last 2 seasons have not conducted an actual head coaching search. I cannot believe the number of people who have defended the process of the Patriots. Now, even though Mike Vrabel was a sought-after candidate, number one, what was the rush on hiring him? And number two, why not interview more candidates that could be worthy of the job? The only coach the Pats interviewed last year was Jerod Mayo. And the only legitimate candidate they interviewed this past offseason was Mike Vrabel. When businesses are looking for job candidates, of course they have their favorites. But they also should do due diligence in looking for the best candidates. And in the Patriots' case, one would think it would be beneficial to cast a wide net to hear different perspectives on how they can fix their organization. You know, the purpose of this video isn't even to judge potential hires, and it's not even like I don't like Mike Vrabel. I like Mike Vrabel. He was a highly sought-after candidate, but I just can't believe the Patriots stuck with the same process that got them to this place post-Jerod Mayo. They didn't interview anybody, and the only other two candidates that they interviewed this year to fulfill the Rooney Rule was Pep Hamilton and Byron Leftwich. Come on, man. Come on, man. And again, Mike Vrabel, I think, is a good hire. It's a solid hire. But wouldn't you, as an organization in the post-Brady and Belichick era, I think this organization needs like an audit, like when the IRS kind of comes in and like just looks over everything, right? This organization needs a full-on audit over everything that they do. Their drafts suck. I mean, you thought the drafts were bad under Bill. This past year sucked. It was terrible besides Drake May. And again, like, I want to ask, besides Drake May and all the money that the Patriots have because they don't have any good players that they want to pay, how is this job enticing? Why should it be enticing to anybody? In my opinion, interviewing multiple candidates for a job is just common sense. It's not something that needs to be explained or justified. Good for the Patriots on quote-unquote getting their guy, but they also got their guy last year in Jerod Mayo. Look how that turned out. Poor process. Let's hire the former player to try and restore what we once had with Bill Belichick when, let's face it, that tree has been horrible. And without Tom Brady, the Patriots have been a complete mess. So I put the Patriots as definitely intrigued, but I have some questions first. I'm intrigued because Drake May is awesome, and the amount of money that you could go out and spend on these guys, and really, it's not going to harm the Patriots in terms of the future. Like, they can backload deals and they could spend like drunken sailors. You can go out, you could get Trey Smith, which every NFL fan base wants to go out and get Trey Smith from the Chiefs. You know, they need to fix that offensive line, but you could pay Trey Smith the most money in the world to probably take it, and that's a good thing for your team. It's a good thing for your organization. You know, maybe they'll even have a shot at Abdul Carter. I can't remember where they're picking, but maybe they'll have a shot at him. You get a difference-making edge rusher in there. So I'm intrigued because of what they have asset-wise, but I do not trust Elliott Wolf. He's not even the GM. He's the de facto GM. The Crafts, I think they need to realize that their shit does stink. They're in this mode of our shit don't stink because we did it with Bill. We did it with Brady. We can kind of build it up and do it again. I don't know if it's that simple. All right, we have 2 teams to go in this tier maker. Let's move on to the Chicago Bears. The Chicago Bears is a gotta-have-it job for me. Ben Johnson already accepted that job. For me, it's going to come down to, can Ben Johnson be a leader of men? What kind of staff can he put together? It's reported that Dennis Allen is like the front runner for defensive coordinator. That would be an awesome slam dunk hire as defensive coordinator. But for somebody who hired as a Giants fan, we hired the boy genius a couple years ago and Brian Daboll, when he was working with Josh Allen. But Brian Daboll has turned out to be not a leader of men. He has a hard time holding his players accountable. And he doesn't really work well with others. So I'm wondering about Ben Johnson. Are you a good offensive coordinator, or also can you be a good head coach? That's the question for Ben Johnson. But in terms of the job, it's a gotta-have-it job. I guess the only question that you can ask is Ryan Poles. It's a GM and a head coach that, again, is not in sync with each other. You're not in the same cycle, so it's a little dangerous, but still, I'm taking that chance if I'm a coach, even though the GM's not on the same cycle, because you have Caleb Williams, man. It's a quarterback that's built in a lab. You have DJ Moore, who's a bona fide stud, number 1 wide receiver in the NFL. Got to fix that offensive line. If Ben Johnson wants to operate the Bears offense like he did with the Lions, that offensive line has got to be dominant. You have a solid defense. That secondary is really fun. You have Jaquan Brisker at safety. You have Jalen Johnson. You have Tyreek Stevenson as your two corners. You have Montez Sweat. You have Gervon Dexter in the interior. So, I mean, that's a really fun defense. You have two linebackers that you got from free agency a couple years ago, too. One from the Eagles, one for the Bills, Tremaine Edmonds. So you have a solid core on defense, and especially if you can get a good defense coordinator there, that's a guy that can kind of handle that defense. So this Bears job has got to have it because that defense, that roster, mostly put together there. Obviously, still some pieces needed. Maybe you get another pass rusher. And then the offense, you got to fix that offensive line. If you fix that offensive line, that offense can be very, very fun. You get Caleb Williams in a better spot. Like, hey, believe in yourself if you're a coach. I can get Caleb Williams right. This is a quarterback that's built in a lab. It's a got-to-have-it job. Simple for me. All right, last but not least, how about them Cowboys, man? How about those Dallas Cowboys? Now, originally, when I was thinking about this video, I was going to put them intriguing, but your owner is nuts, or I was going to put definitely intrigued, but I have some questions first, because the Cowboys, they draft well. They draft very well. You can't deny that. But then I started to think more about this Cowboys job, and even the way that they handled the whole Mike McCarthy situation, denying him the opportunity to interview for the Bears job, and then just 1 week later, letting him go or just not re-upping his contract, just kind of a bad look. I want you to think about this Cowboy roster. Do you think this Cowboys roster is good? They have Dak Prescott, yes, which they had to pay him $60 million a year because they waited until the 11th hour to extend his contract. CeeDee Lamb, yes, very good player, but another guy that they had to wait till the 11th hour to extend, and he missed all of training camp, so he wasn't as effective this year as he could have been. Waited to the 11th hour to extend him and probably overpaid him. I think they're going to do the same thing with Micah Parsons, by the way. Micah Parsons, who's probably going to not want to show up to camp because he's looking for a new deal, but the Cowboys always dig their heels in, and they don't want to pay anybody, even though they have good players. Like, reward yourself. Reward yourself for drafting and developing good players by paying them early as the lights go out. Why not reward these guys? Why not reward them? So that's their contract situations and their salary cap situation, which the Cowboys always love to claim that they never have money and they can't spend money, things like that. They didn't improve. They didn't do anything free agency-wise last year. What, Eric Kendricks, right? The linebacker? That was their improvements via free agency. They eventually brought back Ezekiel Elliott. That was it. Let's talk about their roster, though. Offensive line, Zach Martin is probably either going to retire or he's leaving. He's the active leader in first-team All-Pros with 6. So what's the rest of that offensive line going to look like? Tyler Smith, who's an All-Pro caliber player at guard. Cooper Beebe at center, okay. Tyler Guyton, injured throughout his rookie year, but there were times where they would pull him. He didn't have the best rookie year. So that offensive line went from dominant to, maybe it's okay, solid. They had the worst running back room in the NFL. Let's talk about that defense. DeMarcus Lawrence, he's going to look for a new contract, or is Dallas going to buckle up and pay him? He's a good run defender, very good run defender, but not the same sacks guy that he used to be. That interior defensive line is horrible. Mozzie Smith is a complete bust, first-round pick from Michigan. Osa Odighizuwa, I also believe, is a free agent. Are you going to pay him? Very good pass-rushing interior defensive lineman. Are they going to let him walk? What talent do they have at interior linebacker? They had DeMorvion Overshown, who kind of played well and looked like, hey, second-year player coming off a season-ending injury. But nope, boom, he gets a season-ending injury, his second one in 3 years. So I don't know, man. Like, the roster's not good. It's not. It has Dak Prescott, which is going to take you places. It has Micah Parsons, who, he's going to take a defense places. CeeDee Lamb, number 1 wide receiver. They're going to add talent, and they're going to be decent. They're going to be good, but where are the Dallas Cowboys going? Where are they going? They were one of the only teams in the NFL last year that approached the offseason last year and said, we're not going to get better. They didn't get better. They got worse. They got worse as a football team. A Super Bowl window with an older owner, and you have Micah Parsons, and you have CeeDee Lamb, you have the core of guys, and they went into this year without making any kind of substantial upgrades. None. Why would you want to take that job? Here's why you would want to take it. Because it's the Dallas Cowboys, and because it's Jerry Jones, and because it's America's team. That's why the job is enticing. But if this job were The Arizona Cardinals, I don't know if I want to touch it with the dynamics of everything happening. I don't know. Maybe I'm out of line on that. Maybe I'm a little too close to the Cowboys. A couple of my friends are Cowboy fans, and we talk about it all the time. This is not an enticing situation to walk into. It has talented players, and they draft well. Yes, that's the plus. But I think ownership and certain decisions that they make, they don't know their ass from their elbow. There's certain very bad there's bad process in a lot of other areas on this team. So let me know what you think. There you go. That's my tier maker video of the best head coaching positions that are available. I yapped for a little bit. I yapped for a long time. I hope you enjoy. Like, comment, subscribe. Maybe we'll do more of these if this is fun and if you like it. Peace.